And welcome to, admittedly, kind of an experiment on my part, and hopefully just something I can do very quickly to buy myself some time to work on this year's record ripoffs episode. So anyway, if you saw the video I put out last week, the thrifting episode, really the star of the show was this NEC DS8000U S-VHS VCR from probably 1989. I'd say no later than 90. I believe NEC went out of the consumer electronics business in 90, 91 at the latest, but don't quote me on that. So anyway, if you saw the video, this is a nice machine if it were working. This is effectively an editing deck. I'd say this is a prosumer deck, but there is a tape stuck in here, and just something seems off with this. Now, the sad thing about a stuck tape in one of these machines is it could mean any number of things. It could be something as simple as just a dirty mode switch, cleaning it off with a Q-tip and a little alcohol, all the way up to this thing took a nasty power surge at some point, and I'm going to open this up and I'm going to find a fried circuit board, visibly fried. Realistically, I'd say there is a cracked gear somewhere, or something just slipped out of place, or the belts in this thing are just totally shot. So, it could mean almost anything. So with that, this is hopefully going to be a bit of a lesson in the realities of being into old gear and the realities of what it is to fix it up, market value, that sort of thing. So if you came into this expecting to see me resurrect this, I'd say you've got about a 1% chance of that actually happening. If I'm insanely lucky and it's just a dirty mode switch, fantastic, I will demo it. But I'd say we've got a 99% chance that this thing is going to need something a little more serious. So I mentioned belts. I don't just keep random belts and idlers around, so let's say that the belts are just absolutely toast in this thing. They've melted, they're just goo at this point. Good quality belts in an idler, I'd say, is 30 to 40 bucks these days. Also, I would kind of like to have the service manual for this. I can't find one for free download, even though I do have kind of my issues with people selling these old manuals, downloads of. But every now and then I do wind up supporting it, and I try and respect the people that do that sort of thing. But the going rate is 15 bucks for the service manual, a download thereof. And I don't have the remote for this, but I think I found it. Assuming it's the right one, the going rate's about 25 bucks on Fleabay. So let's just make this easy. We'll say $40 for rubber, 15 bucks for a service manual, and 25 for a remote. And we'll just pretend that tax and stuff don't exist. That's 80 bucks that I'd be dumping into this on top of the 15 that I already have. There isn't exactly a hot market for these things. But on the other hand, I would love to see this work. I'm not positive, but it is known to be that a fair amount of NEC brand VCRs, VHS, can do linear stereo. You just don't see that on a whole lot of machines. So for that alone, I'd like to see this working again. And I don't have a machine that does that. All my stuff only does mono if it doesn't do hi-fi. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, let me take a cut here, and we will... I really hope to at least diagnose this thing, or at the very least get the tape out. All right, if I've looked this over correctly, to get the lid off, it's just these 4 screws. I didn't notice any along the sides or the back, so let's just dig right in. This thing has never been opened. No scratches, no nothing. And I find a number 2 Phillips tends to work on this sort of thing, just as a general basic rule of thumb. I'm wondering actually if somebody hasn't opened this, because it's not giving me that crack, that healthy crack that I'm used to hearing. So this may be somebody else's project. And it looks like the title in here is Ricky Tikki Tavi. So if I have to cut it out, I'm not too worried. But having said that, if I get up and take a poke around here, it looks like the tape has effectively gone back into its shell here. So it's not wrapped around the head or anything. So I'm going to guess that something failed down in there. I'm going to guess just offhand that a gear cracked. Well, that copy of Ricky Tikki Tavi in here carries a 1999 date on it. So somebody was using this into the DVD era. So that also opens up the possibility that it could just be good old wear and tear. But I looked over the gears as best as I could and the two belts that were accessible with this thing right side up. And they're a little floppy, but they're not horrible. They should be good enough at least to get the tape out and just do like 1 or 2 runs at the very least. But I checked out the gears. Nothing seemed broken. I didn't notice anything cracked. I didn't notice any missing teeth. Everything just seemed to be a good old-fashioned seizure. So I'm going to try and get this plate off, see if I can't find some clues in the tape transport area underneath, assuming we don't have a big wall of circuit boards and so on down here. Well, I think we might have a winner here. This is, again, the underside of the VCR, and I'm hoping my camera can pick this up decently and focus properly on it. But this belt is just completely screwed. It's completely cracked, completely broken. So that might very well be it. So if it's something as simple as that, I will, would go and redo the grease, try and get this old junk off. I'll have to zoom back out. This yellow stuff almost looks like somebody dumped Dijon mustard on it. But I'll redo that. So anyway, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm just going to order more belts here. I'm going to try a little trick of mine. Hopefully I have something that fits here. And I've discussed this before. It's probably been several years now. But I do keep a bag of just assorted rubber bands. And so I'll take this off. I'll hopefully have a rubber band in here that fits just enough to see if that is indeed the culprit. And also, on the subject of rubber here, this is not rubber, it looks like. The tire, it looks like it's hard plastic. So that's another thing to keep in mind. But anyway, let's see if I can't get this belt off. Oh, this thing is just solid. Oh yeah. Let's see if I don't have anything in here that I can't just try. So here's kind of a small square-ish one. This is a good way to burn out a VCR if you try and replace it with a rubber band and do anything significant. But if this works well enough to where it doesn't seize on me like that, it can be a good, quick, easy trick to at least, get a stuck tape out in this case. But I don't know if I'm going to have a whole lot of luck. There's my camera's not going to pick this up because of the angle. But down in here, there are chunks left behind from presumably the belt. I can't imagine what else. But anyway, yeah, I'll try and get something on here. Hopefully it doesn't become a total mess in me Yeah. Yeah, you can see all the goo coming off of this plastic here, so that'll have to be cleaned out too. But if this will hold together long enough just to see if that will get the tape out, we may have a winner, and I'll just go ahead and, you know, cough up the money for new belts and go from there. All right, one risk we do run in doing this is that even just in having that bit spin enough to get the tape out, that rubber band could very well twist around and cause a problem. So we're taking a little bit of a gamble in doing this, but I'm hoping, since it's, what, 1 or 2 revolutions, I'd imagine that it's good enough just to get the tape out. Now, obviously, I'm not going to try and put anything in this and play it. I think that would just be a bad move at this point. But anyway, got the plug here, and this thing likes to just start spinning when I plug it in. I don't even have to turn it on, so we'll just see how it reacts. So let me take my mic off here. And nope. Nope, not happening. So it may very well not be a belt. I'll turn it around and see if it just didn't get twisted. Okay, I haven't touched it, but the rubber band survived. It's not twisted or off track or anything. So this, here I was hoping that it would just be a simple belt thing, but this may have some deeper problems. Now, I don't remember if I mentioned it earlier, but I did check 2 belts with this thing right side up, and they were a little loose, but they should be good enough to function just to get the tape out and diagnose. But yeah, I'm going to do something nasty here, probably off camera. I'm probably going to turn this up on its side and try and plug it in and try and watch. But I don't want to plug this in with it directly upside down. So yeah, I'll take a cut and I'll report back. Well, this spins properly, so that's not the issue. I can kind of fudge the gears around by hand, so the grease, it isn't great, but it should be usable for a time or two. There may be another belt kind of halfway between what's visible with this right side up and what we got going here, so that's another possibility. But something, it feels like something isn't communicating. Now, unfortunately, without the service manual, I don't know where the mode switch is on this. And every VCR, in my personal experience at least, has a very different looking mode switch. A lot of times it's kind of a circle, you know, kind of like the size of a dime or a quarter, and maybe it has a little metal flap of sorts coming out of it. But I don't know where it is in this machine, and like I said, they're all different on all machines in different places. They all look different. So I'm really on the fence about pursuing this one. Nothing seems to be unplugged in terms of ribbon cables, you know, nothing that would be just simple sight sort of stuff. We do have, it's not in the shot, but we do have kind of the world's worst capacitor soldering job here. Hopefully my camera will focus on that. Very slowly, yeah. It's kind of pinned down. I do have this off and such. So I can't tell if that's somebody's homemade doing after the fact. It looks so amateur. I don't know. That could be NEC, though. That might be part of why it's a thing. I mean, just visibly, nothing looks amiss. But yeah, something isn't communicating. So yes, this would need new belts, but that's only the beginning for this thing. Well, if nothing else, this machine is spider approved. I mean, that almost looks prehistoric, doesn't it? Well, I gotta say, I have never been more torn on whether or not to go through with a repair. I've never been this much on the fence about this sort of thing. By this point, I usually have a real good idea if I want to go through with it or not. And this has some definite negatives going for it. I've already got S-VHS twice over, so that's not an issue. What I would really want this for would be that ever-elusive, shall we say, non-hi-fi stereo sound, which I'm not entirely sure is here. But if it were, that would be kind of a nice, if rather esoteric thing to have. There weren't that many tapes released that way, but they do exist. And I've never owned a VHS deck capable of such things. I do have a Betamax deck that is, but yeah, never VHS. But to have such an elusive feature like that on an S-VHS deck, you know, S-video out, and that'll help me on the transfer front, a little cleaner transfer, that would be a definite positive. So I guess this is the point where I ask you, dear viewer, is this worth like a part 2 video at some point? I'm going to be looking at, if I go through with it, 30 to 40 bucks in belts and such, just rubber in general. The place that I saw the service manual for this, they can be kind of flaky. Assuming I do get it, I believe it's $15. I have not seen the manual for this thing on any of the freebie sites. So, yeah. Let me know. I feel like this should be a game show. Fix it or blank it. I don't think some of our viewers or YouTube would take too kindly to what I would want to call it, but how about fix it or forget it? How's that sound? Let me know. Otherwise, barring anything catastrophic, it's going to be record ripoffs next week. I'll talk to you again soon.